Hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion Show. I'm Gregory Harden II, and today I'm here with Connor or Counterpoints. He runs the YouTube channel Counterpoints and also streams on Twitch. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm phenomenal. Thanks for having me. So we were just talking before the show about being Twitter mutuals for a while. So I'm happy that
Yeah,
my meme spamming hasn't driven you off yet.
yeah, it's good memes, really good memes.
Or boomer memes. Like
Yeah,
I appreciate you,
yeah,
but I know what I am. I'm
yeah. I was raised by boomers, so for me, boomer memes are very relatable. So yeah,
like a little slice of home.
yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop what you're doing. Okay. If you like this video and you like the other content on my channel, please hit the like button on this video. Also, go hit subscribe, like right now. And also, when you hit subscribe, click the bell so you can get notifications whenever I put out a new video. So, thanks. All right. Enjoy the rest of the video. But yeah, so first question I have is where are you from and where did you grow up?
So I was born in Boston, but my family is typically from like Central Florida, and so I moved every 3 years. So I actually lived in Central Florida when I was a young child. Lived in Belgium for 3 years, where I learned French and actually went to school in French. Then I moved to Texas for 3 years, and then I moved back to Florida. And then after moving back to Florida, I completed high school, and then I enlisted in the military. So then I went to Japan and Iraq and California, and then I decided to move back home. So really all over. But if I had to call one place home, it would be Central Florida, basically.
All right, that's interesting. So you were in the Marines and you were also a cop. Let's see. Could you tell me a little bit about your experience with both and what made you want to go into the military and also become a cop?
Yeah, so I was 13 or 14 when 9/11 happened. So my both of my grandparents were military veterans. My father's father was a CB or an engineer in the Pacific Theater, and he went to Guam. I don't think he ever made it to like mainland Japan, and I don't think he had anything too dangerous happen. But at the same time, there's a certain amount of risk when you're at war, right? And then my mother's father was a navigator on a B-17 Flying Fortress, and he actually did fly some missions into Germany during wartime. So, like military, I also have an uncle who was an Army Ranger. So, military history is a part of my family's culture. And then not just that, but I saw 9/11 happen, and I was like, oh my God, this is my generation's version of Port Pearl Harbor. I can't ignore this. So my instinct, which was already to go to the military, was to like solidified. So it wasn't even a question in my mind whether or not I was going to go. So that's what got me to join the military. I was a person other than grunt, so I don't want to, which is basically a non-infantry person. So I don't want to claim to be like more hardcore than I actually am. But the Marine Corps in general is a very hardcore branch, so that's why I joined them basically.
All right, that's Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show are sponsored by Oklahoma Progress Now. Oklahoma Progress Now is a 501c4 organization focused on building progressive power in Oklahoma. Their primary efforts are on developing progressive content for a 21st century audience, coalition, and capacity building across progressive organizations and causes, and working to see elected leaders who are more responsive to their constituents and the needs of the many. Areas of focus include progressive messaging and communications, coalition building and resource sharing, and focused progressive policy goals. You can check out their Twitch live streams, and they go live on Facebook on at noon, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Please support this organization. It's a really great organization. It's just getting started here in Oklahoma. Thank you. Now enjoy the rest of the video. So, what made you want to become a cop? I believe afterwards.
Yeah, I wasn't done with my service basically. So the Marine Corps had been an intense and interesting experience where I felt like I'd gotten some really good training and done like at least hardcore training, if not like a hardcore deployment. And I'd been around lots of really intense people, and I loved what I did, but I never really wanted to be a killer, I guess. And so joining law enforcement was a way for me to continue my service, see and do hardcore things, but not really, go that extra mile where the explicit purpose of my role is to hurt or kill people, you know?
Yeah.
And so I saw it as an opportunity to serve my community and do something cool and intense and prove myself to myself, while hopefully also doing something positive. And I really do uh, love law enforcement. It is a great job despite all of the drawbacks of it.
All right. So what made you eventually start your YouTube channel and start streaming?
I wanted to do this since I was like, I wanted to do this since like, I don't know, maybe like 2008. Like I've always wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to share my experiences. I've always wanted to communicate. If anything, that's like the main thing that I've always done is I talk too much. That's always what I've done. So that it was never in any doubt that I was going to do something like this. But I felt like I had to have something worth talking about first. So that's why I did the military and then law enforcement afterwards. And then once I was done, and there wasn't so much of a risk to my career, it seemed like an opportune time to kind of do this. And it was always my fantasy to be a reporter or a journalist or an author or something creative. So this was always in the cards for me.
That's interesting. Okay. Um, hmm. So explain to me what your politics are and how your politics have evolved over time.
Yeah, so I would say my main thing was I was raised by Christian conservatives, but they were raised in the Northeast, so they had a lot of like liberal temperament. They were very sympathetic to liberals, even if they weren't liberals themselves, and most of their friends were liberals. So they kind of raised me with like an anti-racist sentiment and a very like tolerant sentiment, I guess. And despite themselves individually being conservative, so I felt like I really got the best of both worlds, where I kind of got like a conservatarian. I guess that would be my thing, where it's like individually you're going to be conservative, but then you're liberal or libertarian when it comes to other people. That's the way my parents raised me, and then I always felt like I could understand both sides, even if I identified with the right. And then that my political evolution hasn't strayed too far from that. I feel like I understand like leftist thinkers a lot more. But my sympathies, the way that I start like my mental and moral framework is always from a conservatarian mindset, where it's like, hey, how do you individually live the best life possible, which I think a conservative life tends to be pretty good for you long term. But at the same time, how do you treat other people with a certain level of dignity and fairness that allows them to figure out their own path through life? And that's aided me a lot in this space, where I think I can make conservative noises with my mouth without offending too many more people, because I can still say like, well, you do you at the end of the day, but this is what I think. So yeah.
Okay. Because, like, whenever, like, I've mostly listened to you, like, on panels and debates and stuff like that, or your conversations with Destiny or Vosh. And even though I don't always agree with you, it's nice to hear someone who's on the right who, like, sounds like they're living in the same world that I'm living in. Like, so, like,
We have
that's,
similar data point. Yeah,
yeah,
isn't
like,
isn't
there's,
that brutal? Like that's our reality now, where we can't even agree on like the descriptors first before we get to anything
yeah.
prescriptive. Like I don't know. I identified a lot with that hesitancy. Like,
But yeah, like, so that's initially how I, like, got interested in you and always wanted to hear what you had to say whenever you were on one of the panels. Um,
Yeah, I try to be a
yeah,
good balance of like I do get compliments for being like charitable and all that kind of stuff, but I also basically get accused of being spicy. So I try to do both at the same time. Like I try to be charitable in good faith, but also bring a little bit of the heat when it's needed, you know.
yeah. So what are some issues or like policies that you tend to agree with liberals or leftists on?
Well, I think universal healthcare was the main one that I've come around on compared to
Really?
the
Okay.
rest. Oh yeah, compared to the rest of the right wing, and I think it's because I ingested a lot of propaganda when I was younger, and then realizing that it wasn't true kind of made me come around on it and ask myself like, why do I really think what I think? And so my mom had kind of told me about like the death panels and like all that kind of crap and how like healthcare was going to be wrestled away from private doctors and it was going to screw us all over and we were going to spend too much money on social programs and it was going to destroy the world. um, that's kind of what I heard, but then even she kind of walked away from that stuff after a while because basically what ended up happening was she got some sickness, and while in a public system she would have been screwed over, I think her getting sick actually did kind of open up her sympathy to other people who may not have as much financial benefits as my family has. My family's worked really hard, but we worked really hard just to get by, basically. So it was kind of always this like resentment of like, oh, well, you weren't as smart or as fast or as strong as us. So why do you get what I get? Was kind of like, I'm not saying that was like the intentional mentality, but that was kind of some of the rhetoric, right?
Hmm.
Whereas her getting sick and me kind of realizing how the money actually works, that kind of brought me around on universal healthcare. So for instance, like I want to say the Americans spend like 22 or 27% on healthcare per GDP, but then developed countries that spend similar amounts or have a universal program, they spend like between 12 and 17. So we spend like 30% more to not have universal healthcare.
Yeah.
So that just makes no sense unless you really don't want poor working people to have healthcare, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I was won over on that.
Okay. And what are some other issues that you tend to agree with liberals and leftists on? Like,
Well, liberals is easier. Like I
yeah.
would actually consider myself a liberal. Like so,
Hmm.
universal rights, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience. These are all things that I know and care about. The where I get away from liberals, quote unquote, is I still believe in controlled borders, and all that kind of stuff. And then I also still not only do I believe in controlled borders, but also like firearms get me really away from mainstream liberals because most mainstream liberals, if you were to ask like Democrats, like gun control is one of the things that like
Yeah.
brings them to mind. And I I think liberals are. I'm going to try not to use any bad words, but I think they're uneducated when it comes to firearms is a
Yeah.
nice way to put it. Um, so yeah, so identifying with liberals in that respect, it's like on some levels we're almost oil and water when it comes to that policy issue in particular, which makes me like super hesitant to go out into public and be like, oh, I'm a liberal,
Hmm.
because while in Twitch politics that might make me a Nazi, in the real world that makes me like heavily pro-choice and heavily anti-gun, and I'm neither one of those things, so that's hard with the label. But then with progressives, I would say that oftentimes I think progressives go too far. They don't know where to draw the lines. But the general sentiment being that like strong social support systems should be in place in order to enable the maximum of like human self-actualization. That's something I can definitely agree with, because I think that like the whole reason why we're on this planet in the first place is to become the best human beings possible that we can.
Hmm.
So where we draw those lines is where we bicker and differentiate. But that instinct to want to enable as many people as possible to live good lives, I identify with that very heavily.
Okay. What was I about to say? But yeah, I when it comes to guns, I definitely agree with you on that one. Where when like liberals, they don't really know much of anything about guns. At least most of them don't, from my experience. Because even people who I know, like I've known liberals here in Oklahoma, who owned gun shops and whatnot, and they'll even tell me like, yeah, most Democrats don't know anything about guns.
And
It's like
basically need to
it,
shut up. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty funny, and also they don't understand like the rural perspective when it comes to guns and why. If sure, if you live in like an urban city where if something's happening to you, you can call the cops and the cops will be there in like 10 minutes or less than 15 minutes or whatever. Like I can understand why you personally would feel like you don't need a gun if you live in the city, but if you live in a rural area where it's going to take the police 20, 30, 40 minutes to get to you based on where you live, feels like you definitely should have a gun nearby or in your house or something like that. Um, so I just like, yeah, I agree with you definitely on that.
Well,
So
the thing that I would offer to the city folk too, though, because I mean, I did work in law enforcement, you know,
mhm,
so like the response time is still
yeah,
3 to 5 minutes, and when something is going bad, that could be you could be talking about a few seconds,
yeah,
being the difference between great injury or loss of life. So that's where for me, like I understand like why people might feel that way, but basically I would still recommend basically being responsible for your own security and kind of conceptualizing that like, hey, if I got into, obviously the best prevention is not getting into an altercation in the first place. But if I was to get into an altercation and help was 3 minutes away, what would I want to be able to do?
yeah,
And that should really guide your perspective, going forward for how you respond to guns or independence or anything like that.
yeah. Let's see. So, with vaccines and the pandemic, what what is your, let's see. I know you're vaccinated.
Hmm.
Um, so what is your stance on like vaccines, the mandates, and the reasons why people don't take the vaccines or whatever? What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I don't think that vaccines should be mandated by the state, but if private corporations want to do mandates, I'm perfectly fine with it. And when it comes to like me getting vaccinated, it seemed like, based off of available information, vaccines were just a good idea from a survivability standpoint. Like there could be a chance of like what is it, like myocarditis or whatever,
Yeah.
like the heart inflammation. But guess what? One of the side effects of basically getting COVID is myocarditis. So what that
Yeah.
told me is that the vaccine, by introducing a small amount of the disease into your body, was having the same effects as the disease. So while I think it's to liberals or progressives' detriment to ignore that there are potential side effects for the vaccines, I also think it's to conservatives' detriment to pretend that like, oh well, I mean, who could have seen this coming, or basically the vaccines are as dangerous as the disease. Like that's clearly not true. And I kind of don't like the fact that what I view as a lot of like otherwise intelligent people seem to be capitalizing on the fear of people in order to get them to not be vaccinated. And I think that's pretty stupid, and it's literally killed people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with all of it, where it's like individually, I think you should do it. I don't think it should be a state mandate. I think that we all need to be honest that there are risks to all behaviors.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like we need to be honest about those risks. Where getting vaccinated or getting a vaccination, 99% of the time is going to be the correct choice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much my take. When it comes to the state mandating, like in general, like with Biden's specific thing that he tried to do with what was it, private businesses over 100 employees have to get their workers vaccinated or have them tested every week or something like that. Like I
Hmm.
disagreed with that because I don't necessarily think people should have to lose their jobs if they don't take the vaccine. It just seems a little extreme to me. I'm okay with mandating it for certain things, like if you're a government worker or if you work in healthcare, especially healthcare. I feel like that's an obvious one. But other than that, I don't. But also at the same time, I also don't necessarily think, even with the side effects of the vaccines, I don't necessarily think there's like a valid reason as to why someone should oppose taking it. Even if your um, reasoning is it's not 100% effective at keeping you from getting it, no vaccine has ever been 100% effective at keeping anyone from getting whatever it is that the vaccine is for. Uh, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind
I
of
think
where
I
I'm
think
at with
that's what
that
I'm
now.
resentful of is the bullshit,
Yeah,
because it feels like we could be honest
yeah,
about what the risks are and say like, hey, yeah, there's a chance of some heart inflammation or some lung inflammation. Basically we're not saying that there's no
no,
risk, but
yeah,
we're saying that it's a low risk, and if on balance, it's a good idea to do it for most people. And if you're one of those rare people, then do it in consultation with your doctor. Like, I
yeah,
don't think that's like a crazy thing to say, but because of the political binary, one of the things that's like most frustrating for me is that I feel like if Trump had still been president, like I've heard this articulated by other people before, but basically, like I feel like if Trump had still been president, then the conservatives would have been like, "Oh, this is the best thing since sliced bread." This is the coolest and best vaccine ever. Everybody should go get jabbed. It's your patriotic duty.
yeah,
But because it was Biden who was president, they were like, oh, who knows?
yeah,
Maybe there are problems. Who's to say? Like, I have this doctor who says this, that, the other. I mean, they're Russian and they're not a virologist, but yeah, they said that maybe it's dangerous. So that's like, yeah, that's a frustrating thing for me. There is just assessing risk properly, acknowledging that there's risk, not being a dickhole about it, and then not letting a political binary being what determines how you make medical decisions. That's like it's like one of the dumbest things we've ever done. So, but that I'm kind of I also think freedom is pretty dumb. So I'm not saying that I don't love freedom. I absolutely do love freedom, but freedom is not just like the freedom to make the right choice. Freedom is freedom to make the wrong choice and be an idiot. So that's kind of where I think that's part of the game, is you see a lot of people getting resentful of freedom because a lot of people are stupid.
yeah. Yeah. And what did you think about masks and the masks mandates last year, or even this year? I guess because some places still have them.
I'm libertarian in that respect, meaning that I think that private businesses should be able to determine what's best for them. So if they
Yeah,
say you need to mask up, you need to shut the fudge up, and you need to mask up, and that's that. So I'm very it's not whether or not I think the government um it's not a question of whether or not I think certain things should be right or wrong. It's a question of like, who has the power to say it, who has the power to enforce it, and what kind of precedent do we want to set, not just for COVID but for any future crisis. And so that's where for me it's like, I don't want the federal government stepping all over this thing, because I don't want to set the precedent that they can just say, oh, there's a dangerous situation, everybody has to inject this thing into their body. I don't want to give the government that kind of power.
yeah,
But that at the same time, that doesn't mean that they're wrong about what you should do, which is probably get a vaccine, wear a mask, wash your hands, do some social distancing, don't be going to concerts, like all that kind of crap. And then even if you're younger, so I have a family member, unvaccinated family member, who was, I want to say, 29 at the time that they caught it. They were on an ECMO machine, which is basically a machine that pumps deoxygenated blood out of your body, and then pumps it back in oxygenated. I think their medical bill was $2.5 million just to keep them alive. They barely survived. If they didn't, if they didn't have a rich relative and a good health insurance, they'd be bankrupt right now. I don't even know if they'd be alive right now. They barely survived. They lost like 40 pounds. And the only pre-existing condition that this person had was that they were slightly overweight. So I'm not, like that's what I'm saying. It's like, sure, there's like a 1 in 35,000 chance that you're going to be the person who gets jacked up by the disease as a young person. But that doesn't mean that it can't be you. So, I'm in my 30s. I'm a little bit overweight. So if I'm a little bit overweight and then I catch COVID and then I have serious complications or I die, do I deserve it because I'm 20 pounds overweight? Like, should that be what people say at my funeral? Like, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
So one in 35,000 isn't zero. And when you have a country of 320 million, and you also have these like mitigating circumstances like being overweight or being older, those numbers start to stack up real quick.
Yeah. And even if you yourself are young and aren't afraid of getting it and possibly dying, you could also pass it to someone who's older and could die. Like there's also that, and I feel like a lot of people also like don't think about that part. Because I hear
Yeah.
people all the time like, oh well, I'm young, so I'm like, yeah, but you have like a grandparent, don't you? Or at least you have a parent that's like 65 or older. Like I'm pretty sure, or maybe most
Yeah,
people
but
don't.
maybe
Like,
they're
yeah.
trying to get that sweet inheritance money, Maybe they don't want to say it, but maybe that's what they're up to.
That'd be terrible if that's what someone's secretly thinking.
Well,
like,
listen.
like, hey, if I get it and I pass it to my
Yeah, I'm
parents.
gonna go visit Mima. Hey, Mima, you want to hang out? Yeah, well, I like I said, I'm a former Marine and a former cop, so I'm used to people being awful. So it
Yeah,
is. It
yeah,
is what it is, but yeah, that's where intentionality doesn't matter, and I think a certain amount of people are just stupid. I'm a snob. So basically, what I would say is people are dangerous, and you have to assume that they're dangerous, and we can do our best and encourage people to do their best. But realistically, at the end of the day, you have to decide like just because people are stupid, does that mean that we give up freedom? And then if that's true, and we should give up freedom because people are stupid, then why haven't we given up freedom in the past? You know what I'm saying? Like this wasn't the first crisis that we had. This is one of many crises that the United States has undergone.
yes. Or as Marjorie Taylor Greene said earlier today or yesterday, 600,000 people a year die of cancer. We never shut down
Oh
anything.
my God.
Did you see that
Like
tweet?
I did,
Oh
but
my
like,
God.
I wonder, like, is she that stupid, or does she know
No.
that people will
Pe-
be mad at her, so it's
well,
worth it
no.
to her to tweet something stupid, and then it'll also reinforce people who love her? Like, I have no idea. Like maybe she's just that dumb. Like
There's
maybe she just means it. Like, I don't know.
like I've met like people, grown adults, not like teenagers or
Mhm.
people in their streets. I've met grown adults who literally have said to me like, "Oh, I'm not going to take the vaccine because they haven't made a cure for cancer yet. So why would I assume that they made a vaccine for coronavirus and it's only been a year?" And I'm like, "You're an adult. How does that
Yeah,
even
why
like
can't they
compute to
apply
you?"
any logical
Like,
consistency whatsoever? Like,
yeah, like
that's
cancer isn't
amazing.
even the same as like, like it's
Well,
just
as far as I
yeah,
don't know, cancer isn't like transmissible via air. I don't
yeah,
know, but not
but
person to person.
yeah, like you at least can't get cancer from someone by the person with cancer breathing on you, at least to my
As far as
knowledge.
we know, I'm
Yeah,
not a
like
doctor.
yeah, I'm not either, but still, like, whew, that's a tweet, man. That's a tweet.
It is a
Um,
tweet. We can
um,
acknowledge that it's a tweet. That's for sure.
yes, yeah, that's a tweet. That's an elected official. I'm ashamed to say which country, but I can be glad it's not my state.
Listen,
Yeah.
let's face it. I'm sure some Okies have said some wild stuff
Oh yes, yes, of
about COVID.
course. Oh, of course. No, like our no, the Republican chair of the Republican Party here, he like made videos talking comparing like vaccine mandates to the Holocaust
Oh
and
yeah, my favorite.
yeah,
Yeah,
like right, like it's just like
yeah.
what, like, and what else is there? Like there's a bunch of crazy stuff that the Republicans have said about the vaccine or the virus. It's pretty bonkers, like whew. But no, it's funny because like I remember 6 7 years ago, my senator Inhofe, he went on the Senate floor to talk about how climate change wasn't real or global
Mhm.
warming, and he had a
Oh, the
snowball.
snowball.
Yes. So we call him
I
Senator
still
Snowball. Yeah.
I still remember the snowball. That's amazing.
Yeah, but like at the time we thought, oh, he's like one of the crazy people in the Senate. Like, nope, he's like just like normal guy now.
Yeah,
Like
he that
we have
sounds about
crazier people
average.
in Congress now. Oh wow. Yeah, that's depressing to think about. Okay, let's change the subject.
Listen,
But like
I'm a typically pretty negative guy. Like I have a lot of fun with my
yeah,
negativity, but you don't want to talk to me about positive or negative subjects because I'll just keep rolling with it. I don't care.
yeah. Um so oh yeah, another question that I skipped over. Who do you usually vote for in elections?
So I up until now, I have voted exclusively local. Like basically, that's really all I did was vote local. And then I left the top of the ticket blank because I don't think I've had a good presidential candidate since I started voting. Like I think I started voting in like 2012. So I couldn't feel responsible for what the United States does. And then in the last election, I voted for Biden, but that wasn't so much like a vote for Biden. That was a vote, kind of against Trump because
Yeah.
I felt like he mismanaged COVID. There was a bunch of informational issues. I was kind of wondering if he was actually playing 4D chess and he was a secret genius. And then he said a bunch like because he said a bunch of really dumb shit that made it like impossible for me to think that he was a secret genius. And then the economy was doing well and everything seemed to be doing okay up until COVID. So I was like, is he a secret genius? I have no idea. And then it turned out no, he wasn't, and he was just lucky. And so and disastrously unlucky afterwards. So that was kind of where I was just like, screw it, fuck this guy. How bad can Joe Biden fuck up? He might be the establishment, but he's still, like a regular
Yeah.
knucklehead. You know what I'm
Like a
saying?
normal person at least.
Yeah,
Yes.
like a regular level of knuckleheadry that
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with, which is sad to say because it just means I'm a normie. But guess what? I'm a normie. So I voted for Biden on the last ticket. But that was really the only presidential race that I participated in.
Okay. So like locally, like for your state legislature,
I do look at
yeah.
what they say.
Okay.
So for instance, like Stephanie Murphy is my local rep. She's Democrat, but she's not as Looney Tunes as a lot of progressives. She says some progressive stuff every now and then, but it's not wild and it's kind of in line with my stuff. There was a gubernatorial candidate who was all about like the assault weapons bans and stuff.
Yeah.
And I voted against him. It was the black gentleman who was
Yeah.
caught with some drugs
Yeah.
and some
Gillum, I think it's his name. Yeah.
yeah, Gillum. So I
Yeah.
voted against Gillum because I can't get behind that kind of crap.
Yeah.
So it is a mixed bag basically.
Interesting. Okay. I felt like that was going to be the answer you gave because I was like, there's no way this guy just votes for Republicans all the time. I just can't imagine
Not 100%.
that. Yeah. Yeah, like that's interesting, especially in Florida, because Florida is
We're
interesting.
actually purple.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I don't know.
So
Some people are leaning towards Florida is not savable anymore.
well, Republican or
Yeah.
Democrat? Because honestly, we're the
Democrats
most
usually is what I hear. Democrats and like my Democratic friends and people on Twitter, they usually say no, Florida's not savable. We should try somewhere else. That's what I usually hear from people.
see, but that's insane to me because I keep
Mhm.
seeing like a leftward shift
Mhm.
in politics. Like I see a consistently progressive shift leftward. So for me, what kind of it feels like is just over time, progressives and liberals and shit. You guys you're just like the fucking ocean. You just never stop. So it's just like maybe you're right. Maybe
Yeah.
you're right about the shit that you're talking about. But it also feels like it's just like purple Texas.
Yeah.
Who saw that coming? You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't see that shit coming. Texas was a red bastion for forever,
Yeah.
and now it's purple. It's up for grabs. I think local will probably always be red, but the fact that it was even up for grabs at the federal level is fucking crazy. I never
Yeah.
thought I would see that.
Yeah, because I remember, wow, that was crazy. That election night last year, like Texas was blue for like a good part of the night. I was like, oh, this is something. But
Well,
yeah,
and that's where the interesting thing is, like, you see a lot of right wingers talking about politics, right? Where they're talking about like redistributive economic politics. That was not a thing. That was not a thing
yeah,
even a generation ago for my parents or whatever, or even my generation. It was just not possible for Republicans to talk about like economic issues and the downtrodden working class and all that kind of stuff. Or even if they did, it wasn't about the downtrodden working class in the context of like the government should do some redistributive economics. It was within the context of like, oh, you're working super hard, but all these welfare queens are, not working at all and they're getting what you get. So it
yeah,
was like a politics of resentment, not a politics of redistribution. And now we have redistributive economics becoming popular on the right wing, which is fucking insane. That's,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, what's the other thing I was gonna ask about Florida? Oh yeah, how do you feel about Ron DeSantis and him being governor?
Oh yeah, I can't wait to join the Florida Guard and be a part of Ron DeSantis's private army. I'm super excited about it. I just released a video about the benefits of militias, and I'm so excited that my governor took my YouTube video seriously. Now I am so annoyed because like I think Ron DeSantis, at least from what I can tell, he is the future of the Republican Party, where he's a hybridization between like the corporate Republicans and the rhetoric of like Donald Trump's America First. And that's where for me, it's the worst of both worlds, because then it's
Hmm.
like populist rhetoric and right wing populism, but then it's like none of the benefits
Yeah.
of like basically caring about anything. So that's where I see it as like a very cynical politic of basically capitalizing on the discontent of the right wing, but then doing nothing to assuage it, and if anything, like capitalizing off of the discontent of the right wing. So yeah, I'm horrified, and I unfortunately I think he probably has a successful blueprint. I'm
Yeah.
terrified, but I think that's what it is.
Hey, not if my governor has anything to say about it.
Well, what's your governor gonna do?
Kevin Stitt, let's see, businessman. No one heard of him until he ran for governor in 2018. Then he beat out all the establishment Republicans, mayor of Oklahoma City, lieutenant governor to get the governor's nomination, and then beat out a Democrat who's our attorney general for 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he got in office and is pretty much like definitely the dumbest of all the governors that like Republican governors in this country. And definitely didn't treat coronavirus very well. I don't even know how to compare it because I know when we did a quote unquote lockdown stay in order or whatever, it was only like a month, maybe not even a full month. Like it
Listen, you're
wasn't.
talking to a Floridian. I don't even know
Yeah,
if we
like,
technically locked down. Like,
see,
like I
that's what I'm
think we kind
saying.
of did
Like,
our own thing.
yeah, like I was about to say, like,
You
I
locked
know
down
like
for a month? Amazing.
about a month. Like I know that it was like what was it? Pretty much the entire month of like April or most of April, then like beginning of May, everything
Mhm.
back open. No mask mandate at all. In fact, our legislature did what Florida's legislature did and passed a anti-mask mandate. So like it said that cities and school boards couldn't implement their own mask mandates.
Mhm.
Um, but some of the school districts ended up defying it. Um, and yeah, and what else was there that he's done? Oh yeah, he's also trying to make it to where our state guard can't get vaccinated. I think he's the only governor in the country that's doing that, which is also pretty wild.
Can't or don't have to
Don't
be
have to.
mandated to do it.
Yes, don't have to be mandated to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's got. Oh, I remember he had corona. He was also the first governor to get coronavirus too.
Mm.
And he went to a school last year, like a week or two after he had it, without a
Mm-hmm.
mask. It was pretty.
Awesome.
It was scary to watch. Let's see. What are some other things? He's done a lot of crazy stuff. You could just Google him. No one takes him seriously as a human being, really, because he's quite clownish on the surface and whatnot.
But at what
Yeah.
point, so for instance, for me, like I
Hmm.
think there's a certain amount of precautions that you can get into if you're um like if you're immunocompromised or whatever, you can wear a mask.
Yeah.
If you're eligible for the vaccine, you can get the vaccine. You can kind of, in a limited way, protect yourself, right?
Hmm.
So you can do those things. Whereas it feels like the stupid people are just going to do what they do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so at this point, is it even worth it to fight the waves of stupidity? Or should we just say, like, this is natural selection, and just let people do what they do? You know what I'm saying? And that's where, for me, like my libertarian
Hmm.
Darwinian lens is coming out, where I'm just saying, like, you know what, you don't want to mask up, you want to pretend it's not real or whatever, that's fine. Just you do you, and then if you get got, you get got, and then if you don't, you don't.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, at this point, over the amount of time that we've done, I mean, we've been dealing with this for the better part of what,
Almost two
like
years.
yeah, 2 years now. Through a combination of Darwinian stupidity and people actually getting vaccinated, we actually should be getting close to, some level of herd immunity.
Yeah.
like, like, I'm not saying we're going to. I'm just saying, we should be close.
Yeah. Like the thing is like the disparity of like who is and isn't getting vaccinated is like the problem. And on some
Mhm.
level, it's like what is it? Like urban areas or blue areas, kind of one and the same, but not always.
Mhm.
Their vaccination rates like way high. So like I don't know what it is in Oklahoma City, but I would assume it's probably 60, close to 70%. I'm pretty sure other big cities across the country somewhere between 70 to 90%. But like in rural areas, it's like what, no more than maybe 20 or 30%. I was looking at a map the other day of vaccination rates in each county in Oklahoma. I think in my county it's like 40%, 41%, which isn't bad compared to like other counties, but we also have like the 14th biggest city in the state, Shawnee, which is like 30,000 people. But like, so that's why, like, for me, it's like I'm not so much like saying we need mask mandates or anything like that. I mean, if some like place wants to do it, if some city wants to do it, or some store or schools do it, then go ahead. Especially when it comes to these schools, I think with some of the bigger schools, I feel like it kind of is necessary. But like, I just don't think that we should be saying you can't protect yourself, because that's kind of what the like ban on the mask mandates in some of these states is saying that you can't do that. But that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to that, because the places where and the other thing that I have a problem with is the hospitals, which we don't have this that much of a problem with it now, but maybe with the new variant we might have this problem again, where you know bodies are just piling up and they have to deny people health care simply because there's no room in the hospital because of all the COVID patients. But that's also kind of a problem with like rural areas in red states, because I know here in Oklahoma we had a lot of hospitals closed down over the last decade. So it kind of created that problem. But it wasn't as bad this time of the year like it was last year. Because last year it was just like, oof. bad. Um,
Well,
but
and
yeah, it's
that's one of the
gotten better.
things.
But yeah, I get what you're saying though. It's gotten better now. Yeah.
Well, what I was kind of frustrated by that I wish. Unfortunately, it seems like our politicians are only able to capitalize off of crisis. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Whereas if we were to really look at COVID as a whole and realize how vulnerable we were, then the solutions are quite clear, which are basically like we need to shore up like medical supply infrastructure. We
Yeah.
need to shore up our medical infrastructure to make sure that there's some level of redundancy, because efficiency is not the only metric through which you judge like items.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you also judge for like stability and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And I think what's frustrating for me is basically like we could be doing things that are incredibly positive, like basically like I don't know, basically building some level of like militaristic redundancy when it comes to like medical supplies or logistics chains or food, or any of the things that we know that we're going to need in order to survive and in order to compete with China. And it just doesn't seem like
Yeah.
anybody's even looking at it, because we weathered the crisis. So now that we weathered the crisis, we don't have to worry about it anymore. That
Yeah.
feels pretty fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, because that was like I think was the black pilling experience a lot of people had last year, was just like, oh, we didn't handle this very well at all here in America. We didn't do anything that we should have done. Like we didn't build any more hospitals so we could actually, take care of people. We didn't make sure people had money so they could stay home during these lockdowns. Even after the lockdowns, we didn't make sure people were still able to have some sort of, like a safety net to make sure they don't end up homeless. Don't even get me started about the um what is it, evictions and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Like it was just like so terrible. And I think the worst part about it was when the Democrats actually took back control of the White House and the Senate, they didn't
And
really do much of anything better. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, the $1,400 checks was good. The funding for the vaccine rollout was
yeah, but it's like,
good,
hey
but
guys,
like,
put us in the game, we'll fix everything. And then you get put in the game and they're like, psych.
yes, like it's just like they
Just
didn't.
kidding, that was a joke.
Yeah, like it was like they still didn't really do like more or make sure that, like, oh, if we have this problem again, we could actually do something to prevent it from getting as bad. Or like it's just oof, like it was just like bad. But no, let's see. Okay, I think the last thing we'll talk about, because I was going to ask about healthcare, but we kind of touched on that already. So policing, what are some improvements that you think need to be made with policing here in America? So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say probably the things that I think are like most actionable that would get a lot of what we're looking to get done while not being objectionable from the right wing is universal body cameras should be basically mandated at this point and federally subsidized, meaning that if there's some podunk town in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere and it's literally two guys who share a car and a radio and one gun with 3 bullets in it. They should still be able to afford, a body camera. So that's number one. Universal body cam should basically be federally subsidized. And if there's any money, any grants, community-oriented policing grants, or the militarized equipment grants going, it should be tied with universal body cams. That's number one. Number two, I think we probably could set up a general the Florida has the Criminal Justice Trainings and Standards Commission, which is a state level organization. I think it would actually be cool to have like a federal level organization that takes all of the training of all of the different municipalities, incorporates the best practices, gets rid of the worst practices, and then just makes recommendations every year. So kind of like a policing think tank. The other one that would be cool is field social workers. the way that we've had 2-man units in high risk areas in the past, we could do a 2-man unit, one with a social worker in a polo and khakis wearing soft armor, and he could be primary on psychological calls. And then having that officer be, I was trained in crisis intervention training. It's a psych class taught by social workers. So basically having their partner being the same person who's trained in that kind of stuff. So that way they can take primary on site calls, de-escalate, make sure people weren't getting hurt or killed, and even de-escalate law enforcement to a certain degree, where if a law enforcement officer is being aggressive in a way that's inappropriate, then they can still get what needs done doing and not hurt or kill members of the public. I think that would establish some trust back in the community. Finally, my other thing that I think would be very useful is, at least in Florida, we have a state level shoot team. So if a law enforcement officer is ever in a shooting, somebody gets hurt or killed, the state does a review of the shooting in order to see whether or not it's justified, and it's independent law enforcement officers who are doing the investigation to make sure that at least it wasn't a bad shooting. So what I would say is that that same department should probably be present in every single state at the state level. And they should have their roles, duties, and funding expanded to include like corruption and brutality. So you have independent law enforcement officers who have served as cops in the past, but who are also charged with rooting out and looking for brutal and corrupt cops who are basically fucking up the job for everybody. So that would kind of be where I'm at for at least a start, and I think that's way better than almost what anybody suggested that's actually feasible.
Yeah, I like all of those things. Some of those things I haven't thought of, and some of the things I definitely have thought of, like the social worker thing. I don't remember if you were part of that debate that Destiny had with
With
Vosh.
Vosh, where they were both right at the same time, but they kept calling each other assholes. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was there.
that. Yeah, I
Not,
was.
I wasn't physically present, but
Yeah,
I was there to lose a few brain cells and have my blood pressure spike. Yeah, I was there.
yeah, that was something. I'm still confused as to why they were talking over each other, and I don't.
Because they're a
Yeah,
divorced couple, and whenever in their
yeah.
same room, their skin starts to grate, so they can't like admit
Yes.
that they agree with each other, or else the kids might have like a false impression that mommy and daddy are going to get back together. So they have to treat
Yes.
each other very poorly in order to make sure that all of the kids know that mommy and daddy aren't getting back together. So that's
Yeah.
my estimation.
Yeah, because I remember Vosh now, he'll say that Destiny thinks social workers are scarier than cops. And I'm like, I don't think that's exactly what he was saying, even if I don't think he worded it correctly, but still, yeah, the whole Vosh and Destiny thing is
Yeah,
wild.
it sucks that we're in like
Yeah.
a bipolar or like what's like I think they call it like planetary tide or like planetary lock, when there's basically like two suns or planets that are next to each other, but their gravitational pull is so similar that they just like lock around each other and spin around each other instead of being in like a normal orbit.
Mhm.
That's what Twitch politics feels like sometimes. We're like you're either in the lock of one of these characters or you're in the lock of the other one, and even if you don't want to be a part of it, you still are no matter what. So but that's okay. That's Twitch discourse for you. So as long as we
Yeah.
can actually like spread decent ideas and get it out into the general public, I'm okay with whatever toxic baloney we have to deal with Twitch politics in general.
Yeah. Definitely some interest. I don't always watch the panels because I feel like sometimes
They
they're
give me
just
a
like,
headache. I can't watch them.
yeah,
I make
like
them and I can't watch them. Yeah.
yeah, like sometimes
So
I'll see them and I'm like, 4 hours. What are they even talking about? Like, I don't think I
well,
wanted to
got
see this.
God bless the 800 to 1,000 people who tune into my show weekly in order to have a headache at watching half a dozen people yell at each other for 2 hours. God bless them, but I can't do it myself.
Yeah. Last question I have here is, what kind of music do you listen to?
Everything, but I think we actually talked about this.
Yeah, we did a little
I
bit.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am a fan of like alternative and punk and emo from like the early thousands. Like I love all of that stuff. Even the stuff that's supposed to be cringe, I probably like it. and and so my only I do like a lot of hip hop from that era too, but I'm kind of wondering if it's just because like I grew up with it, so I don't realize like how bad it is. Because I listen to the new stuff and I'm like, oh my god, this is trash, and like
Yes.
I can't tell if it's trash
Hmm.
or if I'm biased because I listen to trash, but I just didn't realize it was trash because that was my generation. I have no
Oh,
idea.
you were just listening to two different trashes that were different types of trash. That's what it was. No.
Right. Yeah.
What rap
And the
like
new trash is inferior to my old trash. I'll tell you that. Yes.
what rappers from like back in the day that you like?
I love Ti.
Hmm.
Tip obviously.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think of who else I really listened to, but Lil Wayne had a few bangers from back then, obviously. And then I'm trying to think of who else. So there's songs, right? There's
Yeah.
not artists, there's songs. So Little White, Oxycontin, that's a banger. Like, I don't, like that dude is a trash human being who has made the world a worse place. And that song is lyrically disgusting. The song is a fucking banger. So yeah, Little White, Oxycontin literally made the world worse. And I would still listen to that like now.
Mhm.
So yeah, so just a bunch of shit like that, So
That's cool.
if it was trashy and shitty and popular in the early thousands, there's a strong chance that I like it.
Oh, did you ever go through a Limp Bizkit phase?
Okay, so it's funny that you said that because literally as you were thinking that, it's like I don't like Limp Bizkit, but Limp Bizkit, they did a rendition of the song Faith.
Yes.
So and that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just a great song. So like
Yep.
you can hate Limp Bizkit all you want, and I'm not going to disagree with you at all. I think they're garbage artist group, but that version of Faith is amazing. And then what was it? The Foo Fighters too, obviously. Foo Fighters are great. David Grohl
Yeah.
is a hero. And he's made good music consistently for decades. But they did a version, I want to say Prince was the original artist, but Darling Nikki.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just otherworldly how good it is. So yeah, so that would kind of be my thing where I know like more music literate people would be able to say like I love this band, I love this album, I love this, I love that. For me, I'm not a good person to ask about music, but I had friends who were good to ask about music. And so I was able to steal trashy and good things from my friends.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for coming on. Where can we find you on social media and plug your Twitch stream and whatnot and your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so I'm typically live on twitch.tv/counterpoints. You can also catch me live on YouTube. If you type in counterpoints common spelling into the search bar, you should find me. We just broke like 13.5K, or we're getting close to 13.5K. So we're growing fast. It's pretty fun. Then those are kind of the ways that you can check me out. But patreon.com/counterpoints is one of the ways that I'm funded. You can also become a subscriber, do super chats during the stream or after the stream, more importantly. And yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I identify as centrist center right. I'm a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran, and I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd. Just to announce this to the people in chat and to the people who are on your show, I've fallen behind on doing media reactions for Warhammer 40,000, but I uploaded like 6 of them this week. So there should be a whole bunch of content coming out in the next week, so everybody can stop complaining that I'm just doing debates. So yeah, that's very exciting.
That's cool. There's nothing wrong with doing debates. Debates are great.
Except for the headache and blood pressure issues, but yeah, sure.
That's true. Yeah. But thanks.